Watching anime for the first time is like beholding a wildflower in the clearing. The first thought is spent remarking at its physical beauty. Inuyasha was one of the very first anime series that captivated me with its beauty. Its first opening and closing sequences alone proved breathtaking, with flowers playing a key role in both. While cherry blossoms and spider lilies are indeed marvelous to look at, they're also key components to the symbolic overview of the series' themes and messages. Beyond its beauty, flowers are a language. And when it comes to something distinctly Japanese, like anime, it's no wonder that the meaning assigned to cherry blossoms and spider lilies, two flowers with deep resonance in the culture, hold special weight. Growing up in America, and more broadly the West, the rose is probably the most recognizable symbolic image. Flowers in general have an instantaneous association with romance.
From Shakespeare to Nicholas Sparks, they are indeed rudimentary symbols of love and admiration.
And it extends beyond the West. During the period of early Bollywood censorship in India, for instance, images of flowers in close proximity would serve as a proxy for human embrace that was not to be shown within the frame. And by expanding your view further, it's even clearer that it can be so much more than just love, passion, and vitality. Think about it. Just as one may give or receive flowers on Valentine's Day, or send them for a wedding, or after a birth took place, they're also sent to someone who is sick in the hospital, or being laid to rest. In Mexican culture, marigolds are just about as prominent as skulls are in the Day of the Dead celebrations. The point is, flowers, in general, do not mean one specific thing, but it is like a language, with certain flowers holding certain meanings. This is especially true in Japan, where the word hanakotoba, meaning language of the flowers, holds a level of prominence in their culture and art. This language of the flowers has roots in early Shintoism, was established amid the infancy of Buddhism in Japan, and spoken through the ikebana and literature. So it's no real surprise that it would extend to our favorite modern medium. Anime knows exactly how to use flowers to make us feel something. A field of sunflowers symbolizes the warmth and acceptance. Wisteria marks a place of refuge. It's truly a whole language. However, two elements of that language, two flowers in particular, may be the most prominent ones with the deepest underpinnings. Cherry blossoms and spider lilies. Why are cherry blossoms and spider lilies particularly powerful in anime storytelling? But before we dive into that question, if you enjoy anime video essays like this one right here, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. That way, you don't miss out on any upcoming videos from me. Now, let's trace the petals back to their roots. Just as anime is distinctly Japanese, so too is the hanakotoba. Hanakotoba is the Japanese word for floriography, or the language of flowers, which is meant to convey emotion and meaning poetically, without the need for words. It has a deep history in the country. It's related to the term kotodama, the long-standing folk belief that words possess a spiritual power, which stems from Shintoism, Japanese oldest religion, that emphasizes harmony with nature and the notion that all things are inhabited by a spirit, even words. But many say the flower language took hold in Japan due to the spread of a new religion. With Buddhism being introduced in about 538 AD, flowers became frequent offerings on altars. A few centuries later, after Buddhist monks began the practice of assembling flower arrangements known as ikebana, there was actually a palpable rise in the display of flowers in vases during the Heian period. From there, flowers almost became rhetorical tools and even characters in early Japanese literature.
Still, amid the Heian period in the early 11th century, what is considered the world's first novel was written by Murasaki Shikibu. The Tale of Genshi was an epic that followed the life of Hikaru Genji, as well as his multitude of romantic endeavors with various women, many of whom were named after various flowers to provide metaphoric meaning to the respective characters. It was a practice that was very much in style.
So, even as the spiritual power of words in Japanese indigenous religion was not endorsed by the rise of Buddhism, there was also one exception on account of the growing faith's habit of using flowers.
While the two-pronged influence of Shintoism and Buddhism laid the groundwork for universalizing the language of flowers in Japan, this popularity further blossomed later on during the Edo period, when ikebana arrangements reached a peaking prominence in art and culture. And from the Heian period, which restored Shintoism as the nation's religion, to today, hanakotoba remains ingrained in the culture. Anime fans know that better than anyone. Series don't just use flowery imagery to make scenes look beautiful. They do it to communicate meaning, to make room for the kotodama, or spirit of the language. You've definitely seen cherry blossoms. The pastel pink petals clustering into a breathtaking canopy. When in bloom, the trees look like they're blushing, or maybe covered in cotton candy. A gentle breeze stirs, and petals slowly fall like snow. Honestly, it feels like we're trapped in a 12 to 24 episode romance anime, am I right? In Japan, cherry blossoms aren't planted for their fruit or practical use, but purely for their beauty, fragrance, and perhaps most of all, their cultural significance. People even celebrate with hanami, parties dedicated to appreciating flowers, welcoming spring, and reflecting on life's fleeting nature. And fleeting is key here. After blossoms open, full bloom is usually reached within a week. Within another week or two, petals start to scatter, with rain and wind sometimes cutting the season even shorter. Beautiful, brief, bittersweet, like the perfect romance anime.
The significance of cherry blossoms is something that has been entrenched in Japan for centuries, but it has had a lot of evolving associations throughout time. And as you may have guessed, it started with vitality and love. Early associations with cherry blossoms in Japan began with life power due to its correlation with rice harvesting, before eventually shifting to reproductivity. During the Heian period, they were the object of viewing during annual courtship events, which would involve, what you would imagine it would involve, among other things, all beneath the falling petals.
Of course, as one master's thesis notes, since as early as the 8th century, cherry blossoms also represented the ephemerality of life and impermanence of things due to the great cultural influence of Buddhism.
Again, sort of blending old beliefs with newer beliefs, cherry blossoms came to represent life and love in Japan, both beautiful yet fragile and temporary. Associations did linger around national identity. Prior to the 8th century, plum blossoms were the popular motif, and hanami, which again now means cherry blossom viewing, once meant plum blossom viewing. But during the Heian period, Japan sought to formulate its own Yamato identity that was distinct from the Chinese and other minority groups in Japan. In 834, Emperor Ninmei had a cherry tree planted in place of a plum tree, marking the growing cultural self-consciousness. And by the 14th century, cherry blossoms were a staple in the gardens of Kyoto, and hanami began to mean cherry blossom viewing, which all set course for it becoming a symbol of the country today. Despite its connections to figures of war, both willing and likely to die in their primes, like samurais and kamikaze pilots, the latter of whom operated aircrafts called oka, another word for cherry blossoms, which all contained its own fleeting quality. It has circled back to the realm of grace, being primarily a symbol of fleeting beauty. It remains distinctly Japanese, thus, it's a staple in anime.
Shoujo anime, in particular romance anime, rely on cherry blossom symbolism because they visually enhance the dreamy, poetic atmosphere of stories focusing on first love, and for their cultural significance. They frame confessions, romantic misunderstandings, and the fleeting nature of youth, turning simple moments into something larger than life. Manga authors and anime directors embrace this symbolism, knowing cherry blossoms beautifully embody the temporary nature of love. Think about Your Lie in April, where cherry blossoms linger, emphasizing how delicate and fleeting love and youth are. Or Clannad, where petals swirl around characters at pivotal, life-changing moments, reminding us how quickly these moments pass. That's why cherry blossoms aren't just scenery. They capture the emotional core of romance anime itself. They're beautiful precisely because they don't last. Spider lilies couldn't feel more different than cherry blossoms. Imagine a quiet riverbank. The air feels heavy. All along the shore, clusters of blood-red spider lilies linger, their thin petals spreading out like ghostly fingers reaching up from the ground. There's no gentle breeze, casting soft petals to drift beautifully to earth. Just stillness, silence, and the subtle sense that something's coming to an end.
In Japan, the intricate and almost unsettling beauty of spider lilies has held a deep meaning that has remained far more static throughout the years.
The Japanese word for it is higanbana, which translates directly to the flower of the afterlife, or equinox flower, because it's closely tied to the festival of Higan, celebrated during the autumn equinox by Japanese Buddhist sects. Higan is a time to honor those of your bloodline that have passed.
What's true for all Buddhists is that because the red spider lily represents the religion's beliefs in reincarnation and the afterlife, it blooms in autumn and fades after about 2 weeks, a relatively brief amount of time, so the tenet of impermanence is also tied to it. Spider lilies were probably first put to use as metaphors in a few Buddhist texts. The Heart of Sutra, which scholars regard as the most universally studied scripture in East Asian Buddhism, put the name of the flower, higanbana, to use.
In it, spirits across the Sanzu River in a symbolic image of the crossing over into death. Higan on its own means the other shore, and the higanbana, the spider lilies, wait along the riverside to greet the deceased.
Nearly as influential a text, the Lotus Sutra features spider lilies that demonstrate the path that guides departed spirits towards reincarnation and away from Dayu, the realm for the dead.
In addition to lining graveyards as a symbol of dying and loss, they also contain toxicity that deters underground animals such as moles and mice. Despite the heavy influence of ensuring death and the afterlife, the poisonous licorine in its bulbs can protect gardens and rice paddies just as well as cemeteries with the ultimate threat.
The spider lily truly is the flower of autumn, approaching death and the afterlife. In anime, spider lilies are more at home in darker narratives. Think shonen and seinen series, where grief, revenge, and death loom over the characters. They don't mark happy beginnings. They signal an end.
Manga and anime creators know exactly how to channel this haunting symbolism. Whenever spider lilies appear, it's rarely a good sign. Think of Demon Slayer, where spider lilies aren't just symbolic. They're literally tied to Muzan's desperate search for immortality. And in its first ending, red petals appear in the beginning shot, and the final shot steeped with tragedy and loss, underscoring moments where characters confront mortality itself. Or in Tokyo Ghoul, spider lilies frame scenes of sorrow, death, and transformation, signaling the end of one's life and the harsh beginning of another. These flowers aren't meant to polish the look of a scene with their marvelous labyrinth of red. They quietly remind us of the ultimate passage.
All of that may explain why manga and anime keep returning to these two specific flowers when there are hundreds to choose from. Going back to Inuyasha, at its heart, it's a love story. One wrapped in battle, betrayal, and fate. And nothing captures this duality better than in the symbolism in its opening and ending visuals.
The first Inuyasha opening has a sequence that helps set the stage with a quiet yet powerful moment. From an aerial shot, Inuyasha walks barefoot through fallen cherry blossom petals. His face is obscured, his steps slow, as if he's lost in a memory. Cherry blossoms, soft and fleeting, mirror the moments of love and warmth scattered throughout his journey. Moments spent with Kagome, the echoes of his past with Kikyo, and the dream of a future unburdened by violence. The scene feels peaceful, almost delicate, capturing the brief but meaningful joys in his otherwise turbulent life. On the other end of it, Inuyasha's first ending doesn't just use spider lilies, it layers them into the very fabric of the show's central conflicts. The sequence begins with a slow pan across blood-red spider lilies, setting an immediate, melancholic tone. It then cuts to a modern Ferris wheel, with its interweaving beams and lines nearly mimicking the intricacies of the spider lily, where Kagome sits inside a gondola, separated from her friends in the feudal era. The contrast is striking. The spider lilies represent Kikyo, a woman bound by the past, while the Ferris wheel represents Kagome, physically moving forward yet emotionally stuck between the two worlds. This visual duality appears again when spider lilies are directly overlaid with the Ferris wheel, reinforcing that Inuyasha is a story where love is tied to fate. The final time we see a spider lily, a mysterious hand, presumably Kikyo's, gently bends its stem. Kikyo's tragic existence caught between life and death, resurrected and unable to rest. And spliced in between these moments, we all see Sango grieving, kneeling at the graves of her father and her village.
This ending is a final reminder that Inuyasha is as much about grief as it is about love, that balance is reflected in the brief effect of the yin and yang symbol, revolving on top of the spinning Ferris wheel. The cohesive contrast between cherry blossoms in its opening and spider lilies in the ending isn't just done for aesthetics. It's deliberate and symbolic. The cherry blossoms offer a glimpse of hope, fleeting love, and what could be, while the spider lilies reinforce the weight of loss, the past, and the inescapable pull of tragedy. The fact that Inuyasha uses both so deliberately speaks to how it blends these two tones, walking the line between romance and tragedy. It combines them both into a banquet that embodies how anime continues a rich history of floriography in Japan. Inuyasha and plenty of other series continue to sustain the lifeblood of hanakotoba.
When anime chooses to focus on cherry blossoms and spider lilies, it's about connecting us to something deeper, about tapping into something so dense, but with something so delicate. Manga and anime lean into these metaphors because they know the history, the associations, and their audience. And most of all, they know how to communicate with images. So the next time you spot these flowers in your favorite anime, take a moment and look beyond the petals. Consider what they really might be telling you, not just about the characters, but about life itself.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching and listening to me yap yet again about Inuyasha. Sorry, not sorry. But now I want to hear from you. Let me know, was there a moment in anime where flower symbolism really stood out to you? Maybe a scene that felt even more emotional once you noticed it? Let me know more in the comments. And if you like the video and want to be a part of future anime discussions, be sure to hit that like button, tap the bell, and subscribe to the channel. I will see you all next time. Bye!